Roxanne Perez challenges Dominik Mysterio's attitude in Judgment Day drama. Are you serious right now? Roxanne Perez, the NXT Women's Champion who's barely been on the main roster for more than a few appearances, just walked up to Dominik Mysterio and called him out for his attitude in front of the entire Judgment Day, and somehow, Dominik just stood there and took it like he had absolutely nothing to say back. The same Dominik who runs his mouth every single week, who talks endless trash to his father Rey Mysterio, who acts like he's the most important member of Judgment Day, just got checked by someone half his size and couldn't muster up a single comeback. And we're supposed to believe this is the dirty DOM who's confident enough to hold the Intercontinental Championship. I am baffled. I am confused. And honestly, I'm impressed by Roxanne but simultaneously embarrassed for Dominik, because what we witnessed on SmackDown was either the most emasculating moment of his career or the beginning of the most interesting internal conflict Judgment Day has had in months. Drop in the comments right now, did Roxanne Perez just become the most fearless person in WWE, or did Dominik look like an absolute fool for not responding? Because I need to know if I'm the only one who saw how weak that made him look. Friday Night SmackDown delivered a backstage segment that has everyone talking, and not just because it was unexpected but because it exposed something about Dominik's character that we've all been thinking but nobody in WWE has been brave enough to address. His attitude, his entitlement, his constant whining despite being given every opportunity imaginable. Roxanne said what we've all been thinking, and she did it to his face while Finn Balor, Damian Priest, and JD McDonagh just watched it happen. Let me break down exactly what went down, because the implications of this segment are massive for both Judgment Day's internal dynamics and for Roxanne Perez's positioning on the main roster moving forward. Question for the NXT fans: has Roxanne always been this confident and confrontational, or is this a new side of her character we're seeing? Drop your knowledge in the comments. The segment started innocently enough. Judgment Day was backstage in their usual spot, having what appeared to be a strategy meeting. Dominik was complaining, shocking, I know, about something to do with his upcoming title defense or lack of respect from the locker room or whatever excuse he had for being in a bad mood that particular day. Finn and Priest were trying to be supportive, but you could see the exhaustion on their faces. They're tired of babysitting Dominik. And that's when Roxanne walked into frame. Not timidly, not apologetically, but with the NXT Women's Championship over her shoulder and a look of complete disgust on her face. She didn't wait for an invitation to speak. She didn't ask permission. She just launched into Dominik with a verbal assault that left everyone in that backstage area stunned. Roxanne said something along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to quote exactly, I'm tired of hearing you complain about everything when you've been given more opportunities than anyone else on this roster. You're the Intercontinental Champion, you're in the most powerful faction in WWE, your dad is a legend who's opened every door for you, and all you do is whine about not getting respect. Maybe you'd get respect if you actually earned something instead of having it handed to you. Bars. Absolute bars. Roxanne said what every single person watching at home has been thinking for the past year. And the best part? She didn't stop there. She continued, calling out his attitude, his work ethic, and specifically his treatment of the other Judgment Day members. She pointed out that Finn and Priest are former world champions who've achieved things Dominik can only dream about, and yet Dominik acts like he's the leader of the group. She said that if she had the opportunities Dominik has had, she'd be grateful instead of entitled. Let me ask you, was Roxanne speaking facts or was she out of line? Give me your honest opinion in the comments because I want to hear both sides. Now here's where it gets really interesting: Dominik's response. Or rather, his lack of response. The man who always has something to say, who never backs down from a verbal confrontation, who's built his entire heel persona around being obnoxiously confident, just stood there with his mouth slightly open, looking like a deer in headlights. He glanced at Finn and Priest as if waiting for them to defend him, but they just exchanged looks with each other that basically said, she's not wrong though. JD McDonagh looked like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. And Dominik? Dominik just mumbled something barely audible and walked away, leaving Roxanne standing there victorious while the rest of Judgment Day processed what just happened. The silence after Roxanne's verbal destruction was deafening. Nobody defended Dominik. Nobody told Roxanne she was out of line. Nobody rushed to his aid. And that tells you everything you need to know about how the rest of Judgment Day really feels about him. Question for longtime Judgment Day fans: have we ever seen anyone in the faction get called out like this without the others defending them? This feels unprecedented. Let's talk about what this segment reveals about Judgment Day's internal dynamics, because there's been tension brewing for months that WWE has been subtly building. Finn Balor is clearly frustrated with being positioned below Dominik in storyline importance despite being infinitely more talented and accomplished. Damian Priest has been booked like a sidekick when he should be a main event player. And now we have someone from outside the faction openly criticizing Dominik, and none of them are rushing to shut it down. This isn't just a throwaway backstage segment, this is the beginning of Judgment Day's implosion. And if WWE has the guts to follow through on what they started here, we could be witnessing the setup for one of the most satisfying faction breakups in recent memory. But let's focus on Roxanne for a minute, because her fearlessness in that segment was absolutely remarkable. Here's someone who's primarily been on NXT, someone who's physically much smaller than everyone in Judgment Day, someone who had every reason to be intimidated by confronting them, and she just walked up and ethered Dominik without hesitation. That takes guts. That takes confidence. And that's exactly the kind of attitude that creates stars. Roxanne just elevated herself in one segment more than months of traditional booking could have accomplished. She showed personality, conviction, and the willingness to speak truth to power, all the ingredients necessary to become a top player on the main roster. Controversial question: should Roxanne Perez be called up to the main roster full-time immediately, or should she stay in NXT to continue developing? I want your takes. Now let's address the elephant in the room: why couldn't Dominik respond? There are several possible explanations, and each one is more damning than the last. Option 1: Dominik was genuinely caught off guard and didn't know how to respond to legitimate criticism. This makes him look weak and unprepared for confrontation when it's not scripted exactly how he wants it. Option 2: Dominik knew Roxanne was right and couldn't defend himself because there's no defense for the truth. This makes him look like he lacks conviction in his own character. Option 3: Dominik was told by WWE Creative not to respond because they're setting up a longer storyline. This is the most charitable interpretation but still makes him look bad in the moment. Option 4: Dominik legitimately froze and forgot his lines or couldn't think of a comeback. This is the worst option for his credibility as a performer. Which option do you think it was? Drop your theory in the comments and explain your reasoning. The rest of SmackDown was overshadowed by this segment because everyone was talking about it. Social media went crazy with people either praising Roxanne for her boldness or criticizing Dominik for his weak response. Wrestling forums were debating whether this was brilliant storytelling or an embarrassing moment for Dominik. And the Judgment Day's matches later that night had this cloud of tension hanging over them. What's fascinating is how this segment positions Roxanne moving forward. She's not being presented as someone who's intimidated by the main roster or who needs to prove herself against established stars. She's coming in with confidence, with attitude, and with the willingness to call people out regardless of their position. That's exactly how you create an instant top-tier character. And let's be real, Roxanne has earned this confidence. She's been absolutely dominant in NXT as women's champion. Her matches have been consistently excellent. Her character work has been top-notch. She's ready for the main roster, and this segment proved it definitively. Question: what's Roxanne's best match in NXT? Drop your favorites so newer fans can go watch it. But back to Dominik, because we need to discuss what this means for his Intercontinental Championship reign. If he can't even defend himself verbally against Roxanne Perez, how is he supposed to be a credible champion? How is he supposed to be taken seriously when he's being humiliated in backstage segments by someone who's not even in his division? This is the problem with how Dominik has been booked. He's positioned as a top champion, but his character is written as weak, entitled, and unable to back up his talk when confronted with real criticism. He can beat up his father Rey Mysterio because there's emotional baggage there, but when someone with no connection to him calls him out on his BS, he folds like a cheap suit. WWE needs to make a decision with Dominik's character. Is he a chicken shit heel who talks big but can't back it up? Or is he a legitimate tough guy who deserves to hold championships? Because right now he's neither, and that ambiguity is killing any credibility he has. Loaded question incoming: would Dominik be better as a face who has to overcome his insecurities, or should he stay heel but become more vicious to match his talk? What's the better character direction? The Judgment Day's reaction to this segment is also telling. Finn's subtle smirk when Roxanne was calling out Dominik suggested he agreed with her assessment. Priest's refusal to defend Dominik indicated he's tired of having to constantly protect someone who should be able to stand on his own. Even JD McDonough, who's usually the wild card, seemed to be enjoying watching Dominik squirm. This faction is one incident away from completely falling apart, and Roxanne Perez might have just provided that incident. If Dominik continues to show weakness, if he continues to rely on others to fight his battles, if he continues to demonstrate that he's not worthy of the position he's been given, Judgment Day will turn on him. And honestly, it would be deserved. Here's a fantasy booking question: when Judgment Day breaks up, who should be the one to finally turn on Dominik? Finn? Priest? Or should it be a collective decision? Give me your best breakup scenario. Roxanne's promo also highlighted something important about generational differences in wrestling. She represents the new generation, hungry, talented, willing to take risks and speak their minds. Dominik represents nepotism, entitlement, and skating by on family connections rather than personal merit. That generational clash is compelling television and exactly the kind of storytelling WWE should be emphasizing. The fact that Roxanne is younger than Dominik but infinitely more mature and professional adds another layer to this dynamic. She's accomplished more in NXT than Dominik has accomplished on the main roster despite having all the advantages. She's earned her championship through incredible matches and character work. Dominik had his championship handed to him through faction interference and creative favoritism. Question for the audience: at their current skill levels, who would win a legit wrestling match, Roxanne Perez or Dominik Mysterio? Be honest in your assessment. The segment also raises questions about gender dynamics in WWE because this was not a romantic storyline or a women telling men off cliché. This was one wrestler calling out another wrestler for professional inadequacy. Roxanne wasn't flirting, wasn't playing a love interest, wasn't doing anything stereotypically female. She was being a competitor who saw someone not living up to their potential and called them out. That's progressive storytelling. That's treating women's wrestlers as equals. And WWE deserves credit for allowing Roxanne to have that moment without undermining it with romantic subtext or having Dominik immediately dismiss her because she's a woman. Moving forward, WWE has several options for where this storyline goes. 1. Dominik tries to prove Roxanne wrong by becoming more focused and serious, leading to character growth. 2. Dominik doubles down on his entitled attitude and tries to get revenge on Roxanne, leading to potential intergender confrontation. 3. The rest of Judgment Day sides with Roxanne's assessment, leading to Dominik's exit from the faction. 4. This was a one-off segment meant to generate buzz without long-term follow-up, the worst option. Which direction do you want to see? And which direction do you think WWE will actually go? Drop both answers in the comments. The social media reaction to this segment has been overwhelmingly supportive of Roxanne. Wrestling fans are craving wrestlers who feel real, who speak their minds, who aren't afraid of confrontation. Roxanne delivered all of that in one 2-minute segment, and she's instantly become one of the most talked about performers in WWE. Meanwhile, Dominik is trending for all the wrong reasons. People are mocking his inability to respond, questioning his position in WWE, and openly wondering if he has what it takes to be a top star. That's not the kind of attention WWE wants for their Intercontinental Champion. Question: what should Dominik's response be on next week's SmackDown? Apologize? Attack Roxanne verbally? Ignore it? Give me your booking ideas. The production of this segment was also brilliant. The camera angles captured everyone's reactions perfectly. The silence after Roxanne finished speaking was maintained just long enough to be uncomfortable. Dominik's walk away was shot to emphasize his defeat. Everything about how this was filmed and edited made the moment land with maximum impact. This is the kind of segment that gets shown in video packages for years. This is the kind of moment that defines characters and creates lasting memories. Whether WWE capitalizes on this momentum or wastes it remains to be seen, but they've created something special here. Let me throw out a wild prediction. What if this leads to Roxanne challenging for the Intercontinental Championship in some kind of intergender storyline? WWE has been slowly opening the door to those possibilities, and a motivated Roxanne versus a desperate to prove himself Dominik could be fascinating television. Would you want to see Roxanne versus Dominik in an actual match? Yes or no, and explain your reasoning in the comments. The underlying message of this segment is clear: talent and attitude matter more than name recognition or family connections. Roxanne has both talent and attitude. Dominik has name recognition but questionable talent and a terrible attitude. And when those two things collide, truth wins out. This segment also serves as a reminder that WWE has incredible talent on their roster both on the main shows and in NXT that could be creating moments like this weekly if given the opportunity. Roxanne proved she's ready for the spotlight. Now it's up to WWE to give her that platform consistently. The fact that Judgment Day didn't immediately retaliate against Roxanne is also significant. In most wrestling scenarios, if someone insults a faction member, the whole group would attack that person to send a message. But here, nothing. No threats, no intimidation, no physical confrontation. Just acceptance that what Roxanne said was true. That's devastating for Dominik's position in the group. That's a clear indication that his time in Judgment Day is limited. And honestly, good. Dominik would benefit from being forced to stand on his own and prove his worth without the faction's protection. Final question before we wrap: on a scale of 1 to 10, how satisfying was it to see someone finally call out Dominik's attitude to his face? Give me your number and reasoning. Here's my final take on this entire situation. Roxanne Perez just had a star-making moment that should propel her to the forefront of WWE's women's division. She showed fearlessness, conviction, and the ability to generate instant buzz with her words and presence. Meanwhile, Dominik Mysterio's credibility took a massive hit, and unless WWE has a brilliant follow-up planned, his Intercontinental Championship reign just became even more questionable than it already was. The Judgment Day is teetering on the edge of collapse, and this segment might be the catalyst that finally breaks them apart. And honestly, that breakup is long overdue because this faction has run its course and everyone involved would benefit from going their separate ways. Let me know everything you're thinking in the comments below. Was Roxanne out of line or absolutely right? Did Dominik look weak or is this setting up character growth? Should WWE pursue this storyline aggressively or was this a one-off moment? And if you made it this far, drop Roxanne rules if your team Perez or DOM will respond if you think he'll bounce back from this. If you're not subscribed to Wrestling Newsletter yet, hit that button now because we break down every major WWE moment with depth and honesty. Like this video if you enjoyed the analysis. And share it with everyone because this segment needs to be discussed. Until next time, speak your truth, demand accountability, and I'll see you in the next one.